I come from the planet Melmac. I'm a member of a civilization millions of years ahead of your own.
So the Obi Wan show is finally over, and you probably thought you wanted a review, but frankly, if you put yourself through this like I did, what you probably need is a neuroplasty. I just don't understand how these producers can have all of this great source material and a solid concept practically spoon-fed to them on a silver platter, and it still seemed like they intentionally went out of their way to fuck it up as much as possible. If you had told me years ago that we'd be getting a Boba Fett show, a Halo show, and an Obi Wan show, and I'd hate all three of them, I'd probably have just killed myself. But unfortunately, after a constant barrage of having my childhood shit on by soulless mega corporations, I've eroded any fiber of hope I had left in my soul. These stories and characters will be treated with any ounce of respect. Frankly, if you're still content with the egregiously subpar content these companies have been spewing out of their bile ducts, I'm afraid you've been so horrifically beaten down that you've developed a debilitating case of Stockholm Syndrome. I think the most frustrating thing about all this is that they'll give us these little nuggets of badassery in all these shows, but it just gets overshadowed by the other 3/4 of the content you have to endure that'll leave you craving a lobotomy. The Obi Wan Kenobi show is a show rife with canonical errors that frankly had no business existing in the first place, but we were willing to excuse them to see these beloved characters interact again in a truly meaningful way. This would have served much better as a 2 to 2.5 hour feature film, acting as a character study of Obi-Wan dealing with the weight of his guilt and conversing with the ghost of Qui-Gon to hear his thoughts on the terrible consequences of the child he yearned to train going down such a horrid path. And Vader coming to terms with being a shallow husk of his former self, being consumed with rage for being mutilated and left for dead by his best friend, and losing everything and everyone he ever cared about, with flashbacks to the old days, showing the friendship we never got much sense of from the prequels, and showing moments that would foreshadow his eventual turn to the dark side. Yet somehow on a show with twice the runtime, we got even less of that. Instead, Disney handed us from their shit-filled palm the stories of the Power Ranger Inquisitor Squad and misadventures of Child Leia. And no disrespect to the kid, listen, even good child actors are bad actors. It's not their fault. They're small and stupid. And as if one season of gut-wrenching disappointment wasn't enough, they're already calling to produce a second season to milk our nostalgia as much as physically possible. I think I would sooner give myself alcohol-induced hepatitis than suffer through another season of an already redundant show. But let's get into the nitty-gritty and discuss the good and the ghastly aspects of this show. I don't know whose bright idea it was to fixate this show on the child version of a character who was never even supposed to have encountered Obi-Wan, and a bullshit redemption arc for a totally new character no one cares about. And why do these Inquisitors even exist? Like, am I really supposed to believe after these people are running amok, using the Force and wielding lightsabers, that just 10 years later, everyone is convinced the Force is just a myth? And we are supposed to like Obi-Wan, right? Like, I would assume we should be rooting for him? So then why is it that throughout the entire show, all he seems to do is run away like a coward and let people put the lives of themselves and their families at grave personal risk just to save his own stupid ass? Not to mention he and his buddies all being fucking horrible at remaining incognito. Like, how are you supposed to stay under the radar about being a Jedi and your plots against the Empire when you will talk blatantly loud as fuck about it with these people right in earshot? With this complete lack of awareness, I'm honestly shocked how Obi-Wan possibly lasted this long in hiding without Vader turning him into a human shish kebab. And why did Reva spend her entire adult life murdering innocent Jedi, all as a clever ruse to get close to Vader and exact revenge for doing the exact same thing she is now? Like, oh no, I'm not evil. I was just committing mass murder to pretend to be evil. And when she does betray Vader, why does he not make sure that this person who just tried to kill him and knows his heavily guarded secret identity is actually dead? And why does she decide after she's already attempted to redeem herself to go murder Luke? And why does Vader let Obi Wan escape from him twice when he could easily use the same force moves he did 2 seconds prior to capture him? And why does Obi Wan not kill Vader when he's already beaten him and accepted that there is no shred of Anakin left, and just leave him to continue committing genocide across the galaxy? Oh yeah, because this encounter was never supposed to have happened and Vader is still alive in episode 4. Can someone please grab my suicide pills? And I'm probably the only one who cares about this, but I really hate how OP Disney has made the Force. Like, it's supposed to be entirely in the strength of the mind, and Yoda, being one of the most powerful Force users, still had a hefty time lifting Luke's X-Wing out of the swamp. But here, Obi-Wan and Vader are practically gods throwing whole-ass mountains at each other? Like, what's even the purpose of these fucking glow sticks at this point? This scene felt more like watching Dragon Ball Z than a Star Wars duel. But okay, even though there's plenty more I could nitpick about, let's discuss some of the good scraps that we were left with. Ewan McGregor does a great job returning as Obi-Wan, and I like that his cadence seems like a hybrid of his voice from the prequels and Alec Guinness in the original trilogy. Obi-Wan running into a homeless veteran clone trooper begging for change. Vader force-snapping children's necks in a village to lure out Obi-Wan. Vader dragging Obi-Wan across the dirt into a pit of fire. This flashback sequence with Obi-Wan and Anakin sparring on Coruscant. Vader making a bitch out of Reva toying with her like she's nothing to him. And this final bit of dialogue in their last duel when Anakin's face is visible through his cracked mask.
I'm sorry, Anakin. For all of it.
I am not your failure, Obi-Wan. You didn't kill Anakin Skywalker. I did.
But frankly, that's about it. And sadly, you could probably watch all of that on YouTube in about 10 minutes. But that's all I really have to say. I'm disappointed that after the success of The Mandalorian, Disney has opted to dedicate the next 30 years to making more TV shows instead of actual films. Like, the thing I was most excited about when The Force Awakens was announced was that I would finally get to see another Star Wars film in theaters again. But at this point, my grandchildren will be lucky to see another Star Wars feature. Or maybe unlucky. So that's my review of the Obi Wan Kenobi show. Despite those small moments of good content, overall it was more disappointing than the results of my last colonoscopy. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm gonna go drink a gallon of bleach and launch my corpse into the cold vacuum of space.